In this module, I want to talk to you about the art and science of asking questions. To give you an idea of how important it is to do this well, I want you to imagine this. You've been having a pain in your lower back, so you make an appointment to see a doctor. When you get there, you walk in and say, "You know, my back's been bothering me a little." Well, your doctor looks up at you from his desk, rubs his chin and says, "Well, no problem. Let's schedule surgery for tomorrow afternoon." Now, I don't know about you, but my first reaction would be, "Whoa, you want to operate on me without doing any tests or x-rays? What kind of doctor are you?" Now, I want you to keep that scenario in mind while you take a minute to think about the last 2 or 3 interviews you conducted with prospective clients. Did you take the time to explore their needs in depth before you prepared your proposal? Did you find out what their business objectives were? Did you learn how they intended to use the technology that you were selling to meet those business objectives? Did you find out anything about the backgrounds and skill levels of the employees who'd be using the system? If you're like a lot of salespeople, some of those topics might have been discussed, but you probably didn't make the time to get detailed answers to each and every question. Well, my question to you then is, why not? It should be obvious if you think about it, that the job of positioning yourself as a professional, as a trusted advisor to your client becomes a whole lot easier if you act like one. And a professional approach to asking questions will go a long way towards enhancing the image that you present in the sales interview. But style and perception are not the only reasons to work on your questioning skills. There are more substantive reasons as well. To give you a better idea of the importance of asking questions, consider this. How much easier would your job be, for example, if you clearly understood the details of your prospect's financial situation? What if you also knew what your prospect's plans were for expanding their business? What if you knew how many of their employees worked in the office and how many worked in the field? What if you knew how much business they lost last year because they didn't have an information system that allowed them to be responsive to their customers? Wouldn't it be easier for you to sell if you knew the answers to all of those questions? Well, of course it would. Well, you can find out all that and more. In fact, you can find out all the information you'd possibly need to do your job effectively if you just develop the skill of asking questions. What does that mean? Well, for starters, it means that you want to assume a professional and straightforward demeanor as you begin your fact-finding. Don't be embarrassed to ask direct questions. Your approach should be similar to that of a doctor or a lawyer or a financial planner. There's simply a certain amount of information you need in order to do your job properly, and there's nothing wrong with asking for it. Next, you need to have an idea of the basic information that you're trying to elicit. For the sake of our discussion here, I'm going to assume that you're going to do some homework before your sales interview ever begins. You're going to go in knowing about your prospect's company, its sales volume, its products, and its services. Listen, with all the information resources at your disposal, there's no excuse for wasting your time or your clients on asking these sorts of fundamental questions. Instead, you want to use your time to get to the specific information you're going to need to do your job effectively. Most of your questions should be open-ended. In other words, ask questions that can't be answered with a yes or no. For example, don't ask, "Will you have any remote users?" Instead, ask, "What kind of information will your salespeople in the field be needing? How often and from what sorts of locations will they be accessing the system?" These open-ended questions encourage your customers to talk. One other benefit of open-ended questions is they don't make you sound like you're administering the third degree. One terrific question you ought to ask is this: what are you using now that this system will be replacing, and what sorts of problems are you having with it? This seemingly simple question will get your customers talking about a whole range of subjects that will increase your understanding of where they're coming from and where they want to go. One final thought. If you're asking questions properly, you're going to find yourself doing a lot more listening than talking. If you're talking, you're not learning. So plan your questions carefully, then sit back and listen. I promise that you'll find out everything you need to know in order to close the sale.